Hello, long time no see. My name's Roo. This is Astronoscope Workshops. Welcome. I was watching Bruce Witham the other day, and he was recommending a metalworking book called The Black Book, a little pocket book which has information about engineering, metalwork, machinery. And so I went ahead and tracked it down. In the UK, MSC sell it. It's not especially cheap, £19.95 I think it costs, excluding shipping, so it was around £25 to buy. But I thought, well, you know, if it's a good book, it's worth having, because I do know that I refer to these sorts of books quite regularly in the workshop. Probably every time I come in the workshop, I'll have a look in one of those sorts of books. And it was only when I got it and I started looking at it and I thought, oh, you know, this is pretty recognisable. Lots of the material in here is stuff that I've already got. But don't get me wrong, it is actually a very good book. But I did realise that I have got a lot of these books. So I rounded them all up, and in fact there are some more around which I can't lay my hands on. But they're all, I've got pretty much the ones that I use mostly here. And I thought I'd do a very quick, very basic review on the books that I've got and the books that I think that I like and what I like about them and what I don't. So I think that in agreement with Bruce is that this black book is actually very good. I quite like the way that the paper is plasticized paper, so it doesn't you know, it doesn't get dirty, and the pages are relatively thick and you can turn them over with big plates of meat. So if you've got mucky hands from, you know, with cutting oil on them and whatever else, you can actually turn the pages quite quickly. It's got some good information in it. It's a good balance. I mean, I would say that it's got pretty much 90% of what you're going to need on a daily basis inside your workshop. You know, it's got stuff like bolt circles, which is, I use that quite often. We're calculating bolt circles. It's got sort of information about countersinking. It's got sort of angles for lathe tools. So there's some really quite useful stuff in here. The Ubiquitous thread guides with all the different threads available. Not exhaustive. It's got a lot of the what I would call commercial threads, but it doesn't have quite a lot of some of the more the sort of threads that you come across in the line of work that I do, which is telescopes and microscopes and optical equipment. They tend to have a lot of fine threads, and some of them are not necessarily in this book. And in fact, sometimes they're quite hard to find anyway. And also model engineers who use model engineering threads, which are like scale threads, which scale threads obviously help maintain the scale, and they're not in here either. But it does have some really good useful information, and it's pretty well laid out. The typeface is just about okay to read. I mean, I have to wear glasses. If I take them off, yeah, I can read it fine. It's not too bad. And that is my problem with some of these books, is that I mean, I haven't got perfect eyesight. It's not rubbish, but it's not perfect. But when you're in the workshop and you're looking down columns of numbers, you're at the machine, you just want to get say a drill size or something really quickly. Sometimes you can make a mistake if you can't read them very easily. So this book actually, you know, from that point of view is pretty good. It's got rounded corners, which stops them getting tatty. It says it's a pocket book. I don't have any pockets that big, other than maybe in my trouser pocket, but you want it as a top pocket job. I'm just wearing a t-shirt today, but normally when I'm machining I'll wear a coat or a machinist jacket or whatever, and it's got a top pocket, but that book would struggle to fit in that pocket. In fact, I think there's only one of my books here which I would truly call a pocket book. So the black book is pretty good. It's a little bit expensive. Oh, it does come, actually, I forgot to say about that, it does actually come with quite a nice drill sharpening guide. So there's an aluminium, you know, decent sort of piece of aluminium. They've missed a trick on the back because they've printed an advert for the book on the back. Well, I'd have preferred, given that you get this with the book, I'd have preferred it if they'd have actually put some useful information on the back. There's something like, I don't know what tapping size is or something like that. Just something, you know, something, or a metric imperial guide, or I don't know what, but you know, there was a missed opportunity there. This side has got lots of sort of useful information about angles for different materials. So, you know, drill point angles for steel and aluminium and cast iron and what have you, and it's got the measurements, and it's also got a little drill size guide there, so you can poke a drill through and it'll tell you that it's 10mm or 5/16 or whatever. So if you can't quite read the drill, which generally I have to put my magnifiers on here to read the numbers that are written on drills, that's actually quite a quick and easy way of confirming that. So you get that free, and it's got little pockets in the back to keep it in. Whether it'll stay in there for very long, I have no idea. If you do a lot of drill sharpening on the bench grinder or offhand grinding, then that might be quite useful, and it's quite a nice addition to the book. It reminds me a lot of this book. This book here is very, very similar indeed. Now, this book here is called the Engineer's Reference Handbook, or the Ref. They've actually sort of tried to give it a trendy name, and they put a whistle there, look, from a football referee. Yeah, so we get the double meaning. He's also holding up a card for some reason, so we've made some misdemeanors, either a yellow or a red card, I can't tell because he's in silhouette. For designers, toolmakers and engineers, 2nd edition. Now, I bought this at my local auto jumble, and I think I paid a £5 for it, I think. I suspect, I don't know whether I haven't actually looked into whether you can buy this or not, but it's published by Cromwell Group, which is a very large distributor, engineering sort of tooling and such like products in the UK, and it's Cromwell Group Holdings Limited and Swiss Tech Tooling, and in fact it's got Swiss Tech Tooling written in big letters on there. I'm not quite sure who. Apparently Swiss Tech are high performance cutting tools, which means that I probably don't own any, because high performance equals high cost usually. This is actually a very good book, and it not only the black book is pretty much tables and drawings and diagrams. This is supplemented with photographs of objects, which sounds a bit hooky, but it can be quite useful. It's got good sections on abrasives. It's got all the usual fits and screw charts and trigonometry and feeds and speeds and bits of my paper. Generally, I actually quite like this book. It's even got things like the periodic table, which I use all the time. It's got steel, all the different types of steel, comparing British, Swedish, German, French, Italian, Spanish, Japanese, American steel types, which is actually very handy, because when you it's a bit of a minefield, is that one. How to use an edge finder. Yeah. How to use a micrometer. If you need to read a book about how to use a micrometer, then really this isn't the book for you, I would have said. But anyway, I think this is actually quite a good book, and I tend to use this, as it suggests here, for designers. I have this on my desk upstairs in my office, and when I need to have a quick look to find out something, this is to hand. So I tend to keep that one. But that's actually quite a good book, so look out for that one, The Ref. It's okay. It's almost pocket size. It's flexible, so it goes in your pocket easily. The black book is, well, it's not flexible from the point of view of the fact it's got a sheet of aluminium sticking in the back, but it is relatively flexible. Once you take that out, it's quite flexible, so that's quite good. What next? Now, there are a number of books that, again, like the one that we've just looked at, which are produced by tooling companies. Now, this one's produced by Presto, and this is probably the very first one I got. This is actually a much more modern version. This is an up-to-date one, but I have got one dating back to the 1970s, which I have in one of my pockets. It's pretty much the same book, but that's actually quite handy, because maybe 50% of the stuff I look up in these books is really drill size stuff. It's depth of thread, that sort of thing for thread cutting on the lathe. But this is pretty much only about drills, taps and dies, and that's the Presto book. Now, those are either free from Presto dealers. I bought this at the local auto jumble. I bought it for £1, but it did come with, well, I'm not going to do a review of these, but 2 wall charts, which this one here is a decimal imperial conversion chart, and this one here is almost the contents of that book, but it's tapping drill sizes and such like, and it's a wall chart. The problem is I've got is that, as you can see, the walls are pretty busy in here. I make use of every inch of space. What I might do, stick them on the ceiling. There's an idea, and then I just crane my neck back and look at the values. But actually, these wall charts here are quite good. I do have other wall charts, and I might do a review of wall charts at some stage. So, Presto book, quick and easy. It is pocketable. It is a pocket book. You can have that in your top pocket. So if you're doing a lot of drilling and tapping and such like, that actually is not too bad. I do use that. If it's nearby, I'll pick that one up. Let's have a look at some, let's jump to the other end of the shop. This is this one. Some of you may or may not have this book. I definitely recommend everybody gets this book. It's definitely worth having. It's not something that I use in the workshop for reference. There is a reason for that. It's, first of all, it's got a gazillion pages. There's a million pages in here, which is pretty crazy. Every one of these pages is like a piece of gossamer. It makes the telephone directory look like it's made from cardboard. I mean, these pages are so fragile and so small. If you put a pencil mark on it, you can see it from the other side. They're that thin. And the font, the writing in there, I don't think I've got macro on this, but you might be able to just see that. I cannot read this book unless I look stupid and wear one of these, and then I can just about read this book. So it's not particularly convenient around the workshop. The thing about this book is that it has got pretty much everything in there. The main challenge is finding it, and that's what if you're good at calculus, there you go. I don't know what that is, something to do with fluid dynamics. There's plenty of beefy equations and charts and really heavy duty stuff, but this covers absolutely everything from as I say, thermodynamics, including friction, mechanical, all the mechanical calculations for stress and that type of thing, all the way through to lubricants, viscosities, materials technology, heat treatment, absolutely every single thing under the sun. And I'm probably preaching to the converted, because a lot of you have got this book. Now this book is obviously an American book, but they do an international version, which this is. This is the international version. Well, in fact, I think all the versions now are classed as international versions, which means that it's completely, if you like, dual personality. It has metric and it has imperial as well, so it satisfies all the Americans and the Brits and Aussies and everybody else. It's not cheap. It's I think I had to buy this. I actually had to buy this from. Well, I did buy it from an American bookshop. It's the cheapest place I could find it, and they shipped it into the UK, and it's not terribly expensive to have shipped. So I think I paid about £70 for it, but it is not a cheap book. If you can find an old one, that's fine, but the old ones don't have metric in, which for me is pretty much game over. I know that they did introduce metric several episodes ago. I think there's a newer version of this as well. It does come with a CD as well. There's a picture of it in the back there, but there is a CD with it with a lot of this information in it as well. But it is a very good book, but it's not a book for the workshop. If you have it if you want to find quickly, you know, how thick a T-slot is or something like that, then it's in there. It'll take you 10 minutes to find it, but actually you're better off picking up the black book and going to the front here and looking up T-slot, which, there we go. I'm not that quick at reading, but actually there's an index, which is another good thing. So I can go in here. There is an index in there, but boy, that's pretty tricky. You can go in here and you can look there, T-slots, page 79, pretty quick to, and you can flick through it with your thumb, which you can't do with that thing. Page 79, T-slots. So this is probably got the lion's share of what I would use in that book, in this book. So from that point of view, this is a sort of, this is the, if you like, the Machinery's Handbook Light. I know it's not, it's made by a different company, but that's sort of the way I'm thinking about this book. Other unusual books, but worth getting. This book here, written by Harold Hall, who was the, at one stage was the editor of the Model Engineering magazine in the UK. A nice chap. He has collated this book, which is called the Metalworkers data book. Now, the nice thing about this book is it covers all sorts of other things, not just metalwork, despite its title, but it does give you some really quite useful information about things like the usual drills and taps and such. However, Harold Hall is obviously, you know, a very inquiring chap. So he's actually done his own work on some things like tapping sizes and such like, and he explores different tapping drill sizes for different applications, and he puts a different angle on some of the stuff that are in these other books. These other books pretty much have the same tables. If you look down the tables in that black book and the Machinery's Handbook and some of the others, I've compared the values in there and they are identical. They are pinching each other's data. In Harold's book, he actually has experimented with some of them, and he actually throws, you know, his own opinion about some of them. So some of the stuff in here, he will say this is slightly different from you'll read in Machinery's Handbook because I think da 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 da. So I think it's an interesting book from that perspective. It also covers other things which you do in a workshop come across. For instance, electrical and electronic components. So it's got the electrical colour code in there. It's got about three-phase motors. It's got how to calculate resistance, series and parallel. It's got useful stuff that you do have to do in a workshop, regardless of whether you're a mechanical engineer or an electrical engineer. You will have to do them. It's got really quick and easy stuff about circlips, what size grooves you need for what size circlip. That's in Machinery's Handbook, but boy, are you going to struggle to find it. I think this is actually a really quite handy book, and I do actually refer to this quite often. The back half of it is things like temperature conversion charts and sort of other factors like that, and there's a glossary of terms and things like that. So, but actually, as I say, I think it's worth having a book, especially if you're doing model engineering, because it contains lots of information about model engineering threads, scale information, you know, what bolt is what at what scale and that type of thing. So it's part of the specialist, what do they call themselves? Specialist, I need glasses for that one. Specialist Internet Model Books, they're called, SI. There's a whole range of them, and those of you in the UK will probably recognise those. Whether you can get them or not in the States, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm sure that they are available. I would imagine they are. There's a whole range of them, and in fact I've got a lot of them. They're quite handy books. You know, there's all sort of, some of them are quite old, some of them, you know, measuring and marking metals, work holding in the lathe. There's a whole series of these, and actually before the internet, before YouTube, Machinists started up, I got a lot of my information from those books. But this book is actually I still use occasionally, and it still has some interesting information in it as well, which isn't in any of these other books. The one that I've left till last is this one, and it's probably the most cockamamie one of all of them. It's a peculiar little book. First of all, it hinges from the top, which seems a bit strange. But actually, it gives you the opportunity to have stuff laid out as a chart in long ways, and you get, effectively, you've got a big chart, but in a very small book, because it is small. It's the smallest of all of them. It fits in your top pocket. It'll fit in a t-shirt. It's only about 15 pages long. Now, this is a particularly old edition. You can see 1972. I do have modern versions, and in fact I have actually sent a modern version of this, or a couple of these actually, to I think Stan Zinkowski at Bar Z. I sent him one, and Adam Booth's got a couple, but Adam has one at work and one in his home shop, which you occasionally see on his bench. I suspect that they probably use them because the reason they're quick, and they have just the information that you need. They're not full of information. Don't get me wrong, you can't look up T-slots in here. You can't see circlip stuff. But what you can see is bolt patterns, which is something I use fairly regularly. It's got metric conversion chart, which is actually laid out quite nicely in the respect that I don't know, you can just get to what you need to very quickly in there. It's got all the number and letter drill sizes as well down the side, on the side of that one. So that is actually very useful. I also use a lot of the thread stuff, so there's all the ISO thread information there. It covers a lot of threads too. It's got all the Whitworth, it's got UN, obviously all the American ones. It's got all of the BA stuff. It doesn't have model engineering, but that's okay because I have a book that does. So actually it's a very, very good little book. It's quirky. It's got stuff on tapers. This is the old version. The old version has got sine, cosine, tangent and all the rest of it in there. Actually, I think they still do have cosine, tangent. They don't have logarithms. The modern book doesn't have logarithms. It has CNC stuff. And in fact, I've got one of those lurking around somewhere. And that's actually really handy. So if you, I haven't got a CNC machine at the moment, but I did have one. It's really handy if you think, oh God, what's the command for, you know, stopping the spindle or whatever. I should know that one, shouldn't I? But you can quickly look through and get the CNC code for it as well. But this is truly a top pocket book, and I do wear this in my top pocket of my coat. And when I'm on the mill, want to tap a hole, I want to know the drill size for you know, whatever, a 3/8 or whatever it is. I can quickly look in here, bang, information. I'm drilling. So it's a quick, easy, useful book to use. Now this is available from the publisher online. It's published in London, Whitechapel Road. I can't remember who the publisher is. I think it's probably not. I think it's probably changed now. But anyway, it's called the Zeus Precision. Or it's called. Everyone calls it the Zeus book, and most ex-professional or professional engineers that come in my workshop, they will see the Zeus book and they'll just grab that and they'll use that because it's so familiar in industry. That's what pretty much most people have in their pockets. So despite, and these are brand new, you can buy these from the manufacturer, brand spanking new for £6.95, I think they are, including shipping. So, and I think you get a discount if you buy multiple versions of it. So the despite the fact that I've got all these books and, you know, 70 quid book, Machinery's Handbook, I never understood why it's called Machinery's Handbook. Does anyone work that one out? Why isn't it Machinist's Handbook? This implies that the machines themselves read the book. Maybe they do. Maybe when I go out here and turn the lights out, they're all digging in going, oh, that's how I'm supposed to work. I don't know. Anyway, Machinery's Handbook, which is 70 quid in the UK, is an excellent book. But, you know, I look in here maybe once a month. I look in here every day. So this is the best value for money book. Next to that, I would rate the Black Book. Although I would say that those two, if you're going to buy two, buy those two, or if you can afford to, buy those two. And then if you want to get some usual stuff about model engineering, such like, get that. If you see one of those, pick them up because they're only cheap anyway, and they're pretty much as good as these. They're not as durable, and they're not as the type's smaller, but they're good to have in your study. There you go. That's my review. Catch you next time.